impose our form of government on anyone else.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today is Monday, September 16th, 2024, and if today is not that date, then you are watching a replay. All right, sorry about that, not sorry. Broadcasting live in the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We're also broadcasting live on social media, and this show is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. I'm your host, Ryan Stacey. I'm a licensed private investigator, and as the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association, I use my investigative skills to dive headfirst into the hidden mysteries of UFOs, paranormal activity, and consciousness phenomena. Thank you for tuning in. All right. Hello, Lisa. Lisa says, hello, Ryan, and everybody. Good to see you. Everybody in the comments, I see you guys there who are live viewers. Please comment so I know you're there. Don't be a creep. I'm talking about you, Danny, who was a creep the whole show last week and didn't actually comment, but gave me some feedback after the program last week, and I got to address that. So last week's episode, we were talking about at the tail end how the psychic medium phenomenon grinds my gears, and Danny Whitson had reminded me that as an entertainer in the magic arts for at least 30 years or so, 25 to 30 years, that he could be an actual expert in sorting out these things because he can figure out the magic tricks because he knows the magic. So shout out to Danny Whitson, who's our podcast host for Beyond The Tinfoil Hat, which is also tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Is it 7? Yeah, 7 now? 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which is a no-show event. Let me just share that too. Let's get into TESA events. TESA news.
TESA news and updates.
All right, I'm a little revved up right now because I had a busy day and I had to rush to get in here and I haven't had a chance to woosah, but I apologize coming in a little hot. Last week, so I spoke to all these. Yeah, so the only thing really new is the no-show. So the reason why it's a no-show is because we got word after we've already confirmed that the guest isn't coming. We have been thinking of other names to call it other than the no-show show. So we're interested in your feedback if you have any ideas on that. I don't see the EA thing there, Chris, which should be there because we worked on that this afternoon. No, I guess he hasn't finished that yet. I don't know what he did, but you were supposed to finish that before you were done today, kid. So please finish that as soon as possible. So what am I talking about? Experiencers Anonymous is next Wednesday. Is it next Wednesday? Check the calendar here. Yeah, not this Wednesday coming, but next Wednesday. So tickets are already available for those who are interested in Experiencers Anonymous. And all those that information is there. Okay, so Experiencers Anonymous is a virtual online resource for those who are affected by the phenomenon that want to talk to our psychotherapist, Susan Dinsmore. All right, about your experiences and what's been going on. All right, no judgment, but an actual credentialed person having these conversations. So keep that in mind when you're doing these support groups elsewhere. So I think that's it for updates. Other than in real time, we are considering an alternative location to add to the mix to add this new collaborative program that kind of just came up out of the blue because an opportunity had came up where we are. I don't want to give out too many details as of yet. But that got in the way. And Jillian, if you're here or listening to the replay, I got your messages. I don't have time to answer you properly, but I'm hoping to do that tomorrow morning. if not by Wednesday at the latest. So I will get back to you as well. All right, and I think that's where we are for updates. All right, so now we're on to the case for today, which is, I think we're in the aerial activity. Yeah.
Aerial activity, sensory display.
All right, so I did have some time to find it before the show started. Yay. So you don't have to do all this browsing, but for those who are new, you want to check out the visual evidence database on the experiencesupport.org website. All right. So this particular case today is UPR 2020-0026 in Toronto, South Core, Toronto, Ontario. So we're going to look at that one, and then we'll keep going. If you guys have any questions, feedback, please say hello. Please say what you want to say. It's not easy talking to myself. Okay. So I'll start with the video. The video slide shows a landscape of Toronto, the CN Towers in the background. It's for your benefit radio. It says around July 12th, 2021 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, an experiencer was standing on a rooftop when she saw multiple flickering lights in an oval pattern. Interesting, because it's up high, and then still seeing these things at a relatively good height. Higher than the average person, at least not on ground level. Slide continues to say they were described as bright bluey white lights with no sounds. Now this very well could be a light show. Very well could be. But there was no evidence at the time of this investigation that was able to prove that or disprove that. So that's where we're at. So we ruled out, yeah, what did we say? Yeah. So it says out here, we ruled out known explanations. So I probably ruled that out already. All right, so August 29th, 2020, the witness statement. I was at a barbecue on a rooftop in Toronto. Okay? Distracted, but having a good time. I remember feeling uncomfortable around the people I was with because I didn't know them very well. That's a normal feeling. So I decided to walk and look over the skyline of the city. All right. Way above the skyline, I see multiple flickering lights in unison as if it attached to a large circular object to appear to be the size of the downtown core. All right. The wording is I like this wording because it's not a matter of fact. They're also trying to make sense of it. So way above the skyline, I see multiple flickering lights in unison as if attached. So it doesn't say it is attached, as if attached. And I like that thinking. To a large circular object to appear to be the size of the downtown core, which means there's some skepticism in this particular witness, and I like that. I'm used to seeing laser lights in the sky. All right. This was not a light show. So someone who lives in that area, but just because she says this was not a light show, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not. But because that statement I made earlier at the end of the video, we ruled out all possible or known possibilities. This would have been one of the things we tried to rule out on that particular night. They were really bright lights, a white or light blue. I did not hear any sounds. I was calm and awe and didn't react or mention it to anybody. So anybody else see it? Could have been normal. Could have been a light show. Really could have been. Definitely can't. But the experiencer still reported it. It's unknown. And we can't dismiss it because it could make sense to another case later on in the future. Lisa, I see your comment. I will address it in a second. So original evidence is unavailable at this time. So we have no original evidence. But it's still an interesting case because we were able to recreate the event for the experiencer. Ultraspectrum Experiencer 2020-26. It's a new. They wanted us to investigate and report. The ID number is 019, so we'll take a look at that. Sex is female. Blood type is O negative. Eye color is blue. 25 years old at the time of the event. Only one witness because she didn't bring it to the attention of everybody else. She felt positive, which means it could have been lights, could have been, or she just maybe was having a good time on that rooftop. Injuries, no. Event date 2011. So that happened back, a few years back. Got the report in 2020, 11 p.m. at night. It lasted about 10 minutes. Again, could be a light show. Very well could be. Time of day is night, isolated event, one object, because that's on the assumption that those lights may have been attached to a craft. So if that could be a singular object, if we were to take that in consideration. The person has not previously reported before. The evidence is analogical, and evidence rating is 3. Sensory display is how we categorize it. The type is aerial activity, subtype 1, which is machine. The archetype that we're calling it is a UFO because of the assumption that it may be attached to a craft of some sort, and the fact that we ruled out at the time that it was not a light show, or may have not been a light show with the information. But it's hard to go back that far when you get it in 2020. Right? My hunch tells me it's a light show. It does. But I can't prove it, so I can't say that. Right? So I just want to kind of make that clear. That's my feeling. And you probably agree with me. Maybe you don't. And if you don't, then help me understand what this is. So we categorize it as unidentified because there wasn't enough information to conclude otherwise. It's a close experience, uninvited, level 2, evidence A. So level 2 would be, remembered the other one. I'm trying to remember these things off my heart. Level 2, trace evidence. Level 2 rating, third party or non-original material. So that's the rating that I got there. So if we were to look at the ID numbers, this experiencer, come on now. Just want to see if this experiencer has made, no, this is the only report we have by this experiencer. All right, so we can't do a compare and contrast on that. Lisa says, hard to say. Yeah, it is tough. The point that I want to make here in terms of the skepticism or the skeptical sleuth is just that language. It's just because the witness believed it to be that doesn't mean it is that. But it gives you an idea of where to look. It's the first thing you should rule out what it thinks it is. That'll help you determine what it is or what it isn't, right? So suspecting it being a light show and finding out that it wasn't a light show, or at least that there's no evidence available to confirm that it's a light show, we can start looking at other things, but it still doesn't mean it's not a light show, right? End of the day, nobody else saw it. Nobody else reacted to it. If it's in the 3-dimensional, then maybe it was a light show, but then we got to come back to the psychogenics, the mind. If it was in the mind, then this person could very well have the ability of having this psychogenic sensitivity, knowingly or unknowingly. All right. I happen to know who this experiencer is, and I do know from other encounters and other things that I've talked about, although they haven't been reported or at least put on the website because I still have the cases sitting here that I got to go through for new ones. I have it on good authority that this person does have psychogenic sensitivity, and I wouldn't call it sensitive. I would say I don't know, enhancements. And that's a far reach from where I was talking about yesterday. So last episode. So the phenomenon exists, and there's criteria here. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Lisa says, could be a light show or a UFO. Yeah, it could be either or, but the reason why it's on the site is because of that description. If I find more like that, then I can compare and contrast, right? This was the first sample. This was the test sample to see if people had a need for this. That's why I'm getting back into cases a few years later, because now I see that there's a need to refine all of these changes that I've been making over the years. All right. And then you should be able to see some consistency, and then we'll get more things added to the site. Okay, so moving on. Lisa's a comment that I'll talk about here. She said, I will be going to a UFO conference with a friend in Michigan on the 19th till 21st, and I'm a vendor, and we'll have some of my books with me. It will be fun. Awesome, Lisa. Glad that you're doing that. If you want me to mention the UFO conference, just put it down there, and I can mention it for you, where you'll be. All right, so now let's look back at the map. See people, still live viewers that haven't commented. Say hello. Don't be a creep. All right, so now we're still heading. Yeah, we're still in Toronto area, so I think we're moving further away in Ontario. We did all that. Did I get everything in Ontario covered? Let me see here. Yeah, we did those guys. Sudbury, North Bay, heading down to Toronto, Detroit. Okay, so this one here, we could go that way. Let me see here. We covered those ones. Covered this one. Covered that one. Yeah, I think that's the last one for Ontario. And then we'll start getting into the States, and then we'll maybe go head over to Winnipeg and start moving towards the west there, the west coast. Yeah. All right. There's obviously some conjunction in here. And, all right. So our next case, this one is a very complex case. Maybe I will ease into that. These particular events here, just so you know, this is when those high altitude Chinese space spy balloons went down and got shot down. So if you guys remember that from years ago, this is the border, all that other stuff. This stuff is here. It's important to see. That's why I've added it to the map. Patricia Page, hello. Thank you for saying hello. Good to see you. Welcome to the show. Do you have any questions or any suggestions, ideas, whatnot? Please put it in the comments. You got me here. Use me. Yeah, so we're going to get into this case. Visitation. This visitation is a hybrid case. It gets more complex. There's a lot more information. So when I get through this, some of this information, is part of other cases. So, and I know that because this experiencer, when we did the reporting system at the time, I did not have the classification system, which means I wasn't able to separate them the way that I do with these categories. And that's the reason why I created this hybrid category, which is as a combination of a few. And ideally, for future reports, I'm going to try and put them in these categories and avoid the hybrid. But the hybrid's there for when the experiencer has so many things going on that they can't separate it, or they're new to us and they don't understand that's what we want to do. Lisa had said Michigan UFO Contact Convention at Houghton. Was that Houghton? Houghton Lake? Houghton? All right. Well, people head down there and check out Lisa and her books. Okay, so yeah, let's get into this one. So what kind of jingle do I have for visitation? Do I have one for visitation? Oh, I do. First time playing it here.
Visitation, intent implied.
All right, so intent implied. Okay, meaning that these particular beings intentionally made themselves known, or at least it appears to be that way. Different from our beings observed, where people see these beings, but we're not sure of the intent of these beings because they haven't interacted with the experiencer. Understand that difference. All right. So beings observed could be a visitation if we're able to get information from the experiencer that could suggest that they intentionally try to visit. Okay, that's a back and forth communication, and that is a complex case. Okay. There are other things I want to say about this case, but I don't want to give away the identity of the experiencer. And I would kindly ask the experiencer not to identify themselves. But I am aware and I am reading the room. Okay. So and for the experiencer who may be listening on the replay or now, because I can't confirm, please understand that what I'm about to do is just looking at it at face value as the investigator, as a reporter, not as someone who's running Experiencers Anonymous. So please take no offense if I say anything. All right? I mean that for all the experiencers, but I do know that this experiencer watches the show on a regular basis. So that's why I want to put this little bit of a disclaimer in here. All right, so let's watch this video. So for radio, the slide says, on April 30th, 2019, in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, an experiencer reported seeing this object change its features as it came closer to her. She was 3 years old at the time. So again, with hybrid cases, this is complex because this isn't actually, it's aerial activity. Okay. It could categorize for that, but the main category of the event is visitation because that is the primary part of this investigation. So in the future, I would like, what I was trying to emphasize is that I would like this particular part to be an aerial activity report and keep that separate. All right. I'm just this experiencer knows that. I'm just saying, using this as an example, so you all know what makes my life a little bit easier and helps get better data, because as impressive as this case is, it's hard to use when it's all grouped together, and it's hard to separate, especially when the experiencer has spent all this time explaining all these things. Okay, so don't feel bad if you end up doing it. You're not the only one. All right. So for context on these images, which we've recreated, this is showing the path. So as it gets closer, this is what it appeared to look like. So far away, a little bit closer, and then like immediately in front of them or over top. I have to refer to my notes. Jill, hello. I don't know if you just tuned in or you were here for the whole show. I just want to let you know I got your messages on the app there. I just have been busy. Today's my blacklight day, so I'm hoping to get to them tomorrow, if not by Wednesday. But your messages have been received. I just need time to think about what I want to do. All right, just tuned in. Awesome. Okay, so carrying on. The next slide says, this experiencer remembers being in a classroom with other children tasked to complete mazes, quote, by use of symbols, quote. Okay. So looking at the language, the experiencer remembers. So this is recalling something that has happened. A memory could be a dream. It could be a psychogenic state. It could be a figment of their imagination, all those things. But it also could be a real memory. Okay. What's real for them, versus what's real for you. You got to look at the levels that you're measuring it at. Okay. But still, for a memory, the artwork, the detail that is reminded of these particular things. And I do have a better explanation on the bottom here. These are specific details within the classroom that are rare, okay? Very rare. And I appreciate this experiencer for taking the time to give me all this information and work through it. Because we have better data. We have more compelling images. They still could be imagination, but all I need is somebody else to report something very similar, and I can prove that they don't know each other. Then it becomes, there's your compare and contrast, right? And try not to be one of those people that just copy to be famous. I'm not making you famous. I'm not making money off of these, all these things, okay? So, all right. Let me see what else it says here. All right. Then she sees this person. So this experiencer also remembers this friendly being. Okay. So it's friendly according to the experiencer. And that's good. It's positive. It looks friendly. Right? But how do they know it's friendly? That's based on interaction and things like that too. You look at this individual, what does it look like? We don't, you could call it something, but is it that something? So for those of you watching, what do is there a specific race, I suppose, that comes to mind when you see something like that? So I'm curious to know. All right. So then moving on, excuse me. I'm going to read the statement, and then we also have regression here. Okay. This is going to take a while to get through, but we do also have some images to look at. So where am I at? I got a half hour. So yeah, this is probably going to take up the rest of the episode. All right. So, all right. Oh, give me a second here. Just need that. Okay. So I remember as a child at the age of 3, okay, I used to live in redacted, okay, in a large field in the back of our home. I remember seeing a sphere moving to the left. So we showed that sphere, okay. It also first looked like the sun. It started moving closer to me, and as it did, the color changed from orange to have a black outline around it. Okay, so that's a really interesting description. But then if we go back to these images down here, it's quite compelling when you see this. There's no like if you're going to make up a story, you can tell a whole story about this. But for this changing, I'm not saying this is, I believe in this 110%. I'm just saying that this is very interesting how much detail was able to be collected and remembered. And that suggests that this experiencer has multiple experiences, okay? Because that sometimes happens. Okay. It had lights going around it. When it came down closer to me, it was like a metallic bronze color with a reflective, smooth surface. So we've got to ask ourselves what objects could do that. I have only seen this as a child during the night. I remember them, so them coming into my room. Well, who are them? Right? I could always feel when they were coming. The wall where they came from would turn black, like there was no wall there. Okay, so that's something that we've covered before with these portals in these closets. But now they're coming through walls. How do they do that? I remember how my room felt cooler as well. They had a small mouth and are 3.5 feet tall and gray in color. They had no hair, large black eyes, flat nosed, and 4 fingers. Okay, this is a being observed. Should be a being observed report, and I don't know if it's been separated or not. I don't know. So we have to look at the visitation, the aerial activity. Then we also have to look at these beings observed, what they know about these beings, and then we look at the experiencer and all these other things. But unfortunately, because this is likely the first case that I've gotten from this experiencer, it's all blocked together. Okay, it's a good case, but to make it better, all these things need to be separated. Okay, please. So they had a small mouth and are 3.5 feet tall and gray in color. You can assume what that could be, but I'm not going to call it those beings. It's a being that was observed. It's an entity. Okay, if you want to call it something that looks like that, that's fine, but we still need visual representation to confirm that. All right, remember the language. I'm awake at this time standing up. So acknowledging that sometimes it happens when she sleeps. They would paralyze me and lift me up and float me out of the room the same way they came in. Now that's interesting. How do they paralyze? How do they lift them? Is this happening in the physical? Is this happening in the psychogenics? Is this happening in the mind? Right? And if it's happening in the mind, it could still be real. And it's whether it's a dream or in real life, this is an event that is realistic enough to this experiencer that they're making these reports. Okay, you have to be sensitive to that. There are nights I would have nightmares and intrusive memories about this. Right, so they're negatively affected by this. And even if it's not true, it's not our place unless we can prove definitively. There's no support in telling them that that's in your head. It's make believe. Now, when I say it's in your head, I do say that a lot. But those who know me understand that I mean you're gifted or potentially gifted. You have psychogenic sensitivity when I say it's in your head. that has a different meaning. That's good. That does not mean you're mentally ill. That does not mean any of these things that you're making it up. But, you know, you got to start thinking, yeah, it could be in my head. And if it is in your head, that's an invasion of privacy. We got to look at how that happens. We talk about CE5s and stuff. We use consciousness, our minds. You know, we send our thoughts out to get these things. You know, there's, anyways, different topic for another time. So sometimes I would hear thumping and banging, then scratching before I see them. I still have these experiences today. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Separating it, got to rule out some of these things. But unfortunately, with this case, it's just, again, it's just all grouped up together. So there's a lot of things that can't be proven or disproven. So it has to be unidentified. Okay? Has to be. Maybe we could rule out these beings observed. Maybe we could rule out this aerial activity. Maybe. But we can't because of the way the report came in. All right? But it's still, data is there. Now we have regression. So regression is part of my process with investigation. If it's warranted, if there's things going on, I'll make a referral. Currently, I am not making referrals for regression because I have come to learn that these are the particular individual in which I've referred to in the past is more focused on money and is asking leading questions. However, there are mixed reviews as well that, you know, that speak to her kindness, but there's just too much red tape that's going to allow me to refer to that regressional therapist again. So take that as a hint. If you're in Canada, you're in Ontario, even better, and you do regression hypnotherapy, contact TESA, admin@experiencesaboard.org. I can still refer to regression, but it depends on where you go. Okay, you send the report in, and we'll look at that. So this is a transcript from the actual audio, and I'm just going to read that and give you my thoughts. Okay, it's time stamped on the left, but I'm just going to read line by line. Witness has been brought back to the age of 3 when she first saw the orange ball. When asked where she was, the answer was in a field. When asked how she got there, the witness stated that she had walked there quite a bit from her home. Okay, so she was drawn there somehow. When asked if she was alone, the answer was yes. When asked why she went, the response was, I had this urge to go. Has anybody had this feeling where they were just drawn to something? Let me know in the comments. When asked if someone told her to go there, the response was, yeah, in my mind. All right? In my mind. So there's evidence of telekinesis somehow, possibly, if it's real. Okay? If it's not real, then, you know, that's up to the experiencer. They believe what they believe. I can only prove what I can prove. We got to agree to disagree and move forward, right? So I can't prove it's not in her mind, and I can't prove that it's not real. So therefore, it is real because it's real to the experiencer. Okay? When asked what happens next, the witness says she looked up and it seemed like the sun was moving to the right on the sky. It was bigger than normal. All right, size comparison. When asked if she could look at it without hurting her eyes, the answer was yes. So that may not be the sun, as this she just suggested, because she's able to look at it. Still could be the sun. I don't know. When asked what color, the witness said it would change color from white, orange to red to a very orange red. Right? So that's different. They burn at different levels. Jillian, I see your comment. I'll address that in a minute. When asked if it made any sound, the response was no. When asked what this ball does, the witness says it moves across the sky and then will stop moving. Then it starts moving forward. It's bigger, and that's when it starts changing. So if this was a drone, it's very unlikely that it would be changing its color and its shape as it's moving. Still could be a drone. That'd be some fancy ass tech that the government could be hiding. But I'm not aware of any of this technology at this time. Okay. There are lights all around it. There's a black ring around it, a black ring. So regression also brings out more details, okay, which is good. When asked if there were any windows, the witness said no, it was just lighted. I start thinking it's going to set the field on fire, but it doesn't because it's coming down too low. Not frightened in a way, it looked kind of neat. So she was mesmerized, she was impressed by it. Okay. May not be a fire source or some sort of heat source, if you will, if nothing was burning. It was close enough that the lights were gone, metallic, bronze color ball. It's huge. So perhaps the light that was seen while it was moving is a reflection from the sun, if it's metallic. Okay, but still, I wasn't there. I can't prove that. Can't disprove it either. When asked if it was the size of a football field, the answer was maybe, yes. So it may not be the size of the football field, but it's definitely big enough that she was considering it. Okay? I back away just a little bit because I thought it was going to land on top of me. That's a legitimate concern. If you're seeing this, you're in a field, you all of a sudden you remember you're not going there, you want to do that. So this tells me that they're in it, they're involved, they're aware of the situation. And if it's a dream state, how many times are you aware of your dreams? You wake up, I had this crazy dream, tried to tell you. Do you remember it? Not every detail. It seems to be changing the color. It looks like a blue. All right. So color changing could be a whole bunch of different things depending on that, but there's not enough evidence to figure that one out. She feels overwhelmed. A bright light. Something's changing. I'm no longer in the field. I'm going to the light. I feel anxious. It's changing again. When asked where she is, now her response is, I don't know. So all of a sudden, this stuff has happened. This light. There's someone there. Someone is talking to me. So she can't see this. This is her going through a regression. The talk goes through my mind. Tell me not to be afraid. It feels cooler. It's an open area. So something is communicating to her. Okay. When asked if she could see any beings, she replied, I can feel the beings around. So she senses them. There's psychogenic sensitivity right there, especially if she can't see. If she's blinded or her eyes are shut or there's literally nothing in the room, she can still feel it. The other senses are on fire. They have a hold of me and are taking me somewhere. Right. So that could create some anxiety, especially if you don't know what's going on. They don't like people. All right. That suggests that they are not people. But who is judging? Who's the judge for them? They are small. When asked to communicate with them, witness replied, I don't feel comfortable. When asked about the walls, the witness says they are wide. There's light going down the side of the wall and the ceiling. There are rooms, but I don't want to go in there. So this part, there are rooms, but I do not want to go in there, suggests that she's seen this place before. And in this particular regression, we're now brought back to an area and a time and place where she's in a familiar spot. Okay? When asked if she has been here before, the response was yes. There's different rooms too. There's more than one. There's one I don't want to go into. There's more people there. When asked if there were more children like the witness, the response was yes. It's like an office classroom. When asked if she recognized any of the children, the witness said, I recognize the one boy. They all telling me that we are supposed what to do and we're supposed to learn things. We asked to describe one of the items. The witness said there was like a gray room. I remember I had to open up a wall. It sounds weird. I would open up to this maze. We have to go down on our hands and knees. Lights go all along the wall of the maze. There's like symbols on there. So if you remember some of those pictures that we showed earlier, that was described there, and they're down below as well. We got to use the symbols to make our way around in the other room we went into. That is where we would learn the symbols. Very intense, not fun. When asked if these smaller beings were in charge, the response was, oh yes, there's a leader. He seems really stern. He knows my name. There's that room. I don't want to go in that room. That's where they have this table. Okay, so there's some familiarity of this. Recurring dream, recurring visitation, you decide. When asked the temperature of the maze, the response was it felt cooler. It wasn't really hot. It was comfortable. When asked if everyone has passed the maze, she said that one girl didn't. She was screaming hard, and we just didn't see her anymore. I don't know what they did to her, but hopefully she's still around. We don't see her ever again. The maze was different levels. It was huge. I remember when you get down towards the end, you could see outside a little bit. I can't tell that I'm really high. I can't tell that I'm really high, so I knew we had to go down to different levels. We got down to the very bottom level. The symbols weren't there anymore. We used different shapes. We had to find the right shape, push that, get outside, and you had to run across the field to a group. They would take us back to the ship, and they would take us home. When asked how she felt after returning to the field near her home, she replied, I felt exhausted, and then I walked home. Sometimes they do it in the evening too, not just during the day. Mother was aware child was missing and almost called the police. Now that is interesting. Child was actually gone to the point that the parents called the police, if that's true. I wasn't there, but let's believe it to be true. How likely is that scenario? Witness is asked to go to any time where she met the humanoid Angie. The witness replies, she's very nice. I like her. So Angie is that being that I showed at the end of that one video. There's a picture of her below. We'll get to that. I remember her knocking on the window. She knew my name. She didn't acknowledge my sister. I thought that was different. I always thought she was an angel. That's why I called her Angie. So maybe they didn't acknowledge the sister because the sister doesn't have the psychogenic sensitivity. That's interesting. That's just a theory, but who knows? She was beautiful. She had long, straight hair. She had small features. She had a small nose. Here, her eyes were not a lot, but were a little bigger than normal. So that's another being in this experience. Two types of beings in this experience. Okay? When asked what color her hair was, the response was a light blonde. She had fair skin. And when asked what color her eyes were, the response was blue. When asked how she would leave with Angie, the response was she always took me to the window. We would go through the window. The first time I was afraid I was going to fall, she told me I wouldn't fall. She told me she wanted to show me something. She took me outside. It was floating off the ground. And by it, referring to the crack. She told me to approach carefully. She didn't want me running into it. I could see my reflection in it. I can't see her reflection. I can see her reflection in it. It was like silver, like a shiny silver. It was cloaked. As a child, I didn't understand cloaking, but looking now, it was cloaked. Okay? I actually went underneath it because I was fascinated by how it was floating. You couldn't see the windows. It was like a triangle. It wasn't until you got inside that you could see the windows. It was like magic. When asked how she got into the response, was we floated on top. It was like liquid. It didn't open up. It was interesting. It was a small craft. The instruments were different. They didn't seem to be as much. There didn't seem to be as much. You would put your hand on it and it flew. So now we're getting information about how the craft works. It's not just being in the craft. We're getting information about how it operates. Is it possible for that stuff? Does that technology exist? That technology does exist. Is it extraterrestrial or is it government? Who knows? Who had it first, the chicken or the egg? But we know this technology exists, which lends credibility of the possibility of this event happening. But it still doesn't prove it, especially when it's in the mind. And that's the hard part, is how do you prove it? And if they're doing psychological warfare, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, guys. When asked if she was speaking to her, the response was, I was thinking she was in my mind. I really don't remember her mouth movement. Doesn't mean it didn't. When asked where she went, she replied, really fast, underwater, then around Earth. Medium transportation. The craft is able to be in the air and the water and in space. Does that technology exist? I think so. I think the government has something like that. I definitely do. Is it extraterrestrial? Yeah, I don't know. Right? UFOs don't mean aliens. Okay, those are different. When asked where Angie was, the response was far away. So that could be space. That could be another place on Earth. That could be beyond the ice wall for those of you who believe in the flat Earth theory. With the extra land that's beyond the wall. Okay. Or perhaps even in the, what is it, Pacific Ocean? To the left of California and British Columbia. Is that Pacific? I think so. Yeah, it's Pacific time. I would hope so. Yeah. Final answer, Pacific. The Pacific Ocean is big enough that there could be continents there as well that we don't have access to. Forget going beyond a wall. There's restricted space in those large areas. And that's where the Tic Tac happened, if you believe in that drone and all that other weird stuff that happened with that, which is a non-issue anymore. That's been debunked. All that stuff, Catalina Island, it's all in that area. Okay. So when asked where Angie was from the response, she said far away. Sorry. She told me I want to understand how far. She could never take me to her world. It was a great distance. So there's a suggestion of it being an actual physical planet or another world. But if it's a great distance, well, time is linear, depending on how you travel, maybe in the physical sense. But in the spiritual sense, you could probably go anywhere. When asked what Angie wanted her for the response was, she wanted to help me. She knew what I was going through and wanted to know how it was affecting me emotionally. And then that is the end of the audio. Okay. So now let's look at these images again under a new light. Just gonna see if I can zoom in. Sorry, hit the wrong button. So, all right, at first, yeah. So we've already explained this. So this is what she saw at first. This is why we thought it was a sun. Oh. Arnold Luckock, thank you for the like. Thanks for tuning in. Still got some of you guys creeping. Say hello. Won't be weird. And then as it gets closer, here's this black ring that she had mentioned. These are these little lights that she believes to be all little tiny lights. But then as it gets closer, here's your silver metallic thing. So, is it shape shifting? Is it morphing? Or is it always looking like this, but the light's hitting it, atmosphere conditions, like what is causing it to look differently? That is fascinating to me. Could be a known object. Even if it's a normal object, I would like to know what this is. It's fascinating. So here's that woman again, as she's seen as a child. We don't have much time to read into all this other stuff, so I want to wrap this up. This is Angie. What does she look like? What kind of, what would you suggest? Now we come back to the inside this craft. This is the entrance to these mazes. They can go in either one of these. So to get to the top one, they would have to be helped up or use a stool, I believe, if I remember that correctly. It's all in here and in my notes. This is a visual of being inside one of these tunnels. Okay, now I can explain this to you guys. And these are the lights that she referred to that were lit up. And this emphasizes a turn or a bend. So they had to find the right way to the right things. So it's basically a maze in the dark from what I'm understanding. And then these are the symbols. These are the symbols that this experiencer remembered. How accurate are these symbols? I don't know. Do they look familiar? Are they wrong? It's hard to determine, but these are definitely not normal things that we would see. There's interpretation on what these could be, what they couldn't be. We can do a deep dive in that when I get more data from other people. And then these are these windows that she saw, these little holes, light symbols. And she pressed one of them and they opened, and then you can see they got wider or something. Yeah. Shapes at the bottom, and they were wider, longer than the lights and symbols. Yeah. So interesting specific details. All right. Now these gray beings that she had mentioned, I'm going to, we'll talk about that near the end here. And then, Jill, I'll get to your comment. If anybody else has questions or comments, please put them in. I'm done in 8 minutes. So speak now or wait till next week. Okay, so the Ultra Spectrum Experiencer Report, 27. It was new. Okay, so this was her first report. Okay, go back to the beginning when I was giving her a hard time about compiling all this data into one report. She now does this, and I hope so. because I haven't looked at the most recent ones. I may have to. That's the reason why I decided to create this hybrid category, because there was so much information that I just did not want to dismiss this case. But the craft and the two crafts and the two beings all need to be reported separately and looked at differently, and then we can put it all together. So I will explain that at the end. All right, female, A plus, blue, 3 years old at the event. So this is a pretty traumatic thing to go through at a very young age. But you can also understand that, how impressionable this is. All right, feeling was negative. Makes sense. You were 3 years old and you're still affected by it. Were you injured? Yes, and that has to do with another case. Okay. One happened night. It's ongoing. Has previously reported. Yes. Third party, no. Analogical evidence is 3. Visitation hybrid, type 2. So type 2 for hybrid is unintentional for this one. So she did not invite them. Its contactee is the archetype, uninvited. Okay. Extreme close experience, and it was an uninvited. So the reason why it's a visitation is because there was communication with these experiencers, or with these beings and these crafts, to suggest that they knew what they were doing. Whereas the beings observed, if they're standing at the end of your bed, I agree, it's creepy, it's scary. But unless they tell you what they're doing, we don't even know if they see you. You don't even know, right? They might be looking at you, wondering if you see them. Ever seen a raccoon in the middle of the night? They stop, they freeze, because they're not quite sure if you see them, right? So just that's a difference between a visitation and a being observed, is when the intent is known or implied. Okay. So for those of you that didn't put any words out there, this particular being would sit in the Pleiadian category, and those short gray looking things would fit in the gray alien category, but they're still beings observed. So these labels that are made for these people come from different places, and Hollywood allows us to copy that when they look similar. But there's characteristics that doesn't necessarily mean they come from the Pleiadian constellation. They could come from the center of the Earth. They could come from Hyperborea. They could come, because that's also equally protected by the government, not just the outer rim on the ice wall theory. So that's something we need to take in consideration, because if the shape of the Earth and the places that we're looking at are in the wrong spot, we'll never find them. Okay, think outside the box. I'm not saying I can't confirm what shape the Earth is, but consider it for a minute. If the shape was wrong and all these things did exist, it makes sense, because I can find these things or put a place where these things could be if it's here. Outer space, I'll never be able to prove that in my lifetime. And you think for a second that I believe that those pictures that they're sending in are not photoshopped? You can forget it. You can forget it. Okay, so there is another case here by this experiencer. It has multiple beings in it, which, yeah, it's still a being observed, but there's multiple beings. So in that sense, multiple beings were observed, but each being that you observe should have its own report. That takes a long time. I know that, guys. I really do. But if we want answers, you guys got to do the work. You guys got to do that, okay? But I will do my best to separate all those things for you. Regardless of whatever comes in, as it comes in, I'm grateful and I appreciate it. Probably cover that case next episode. And I think that's going to leave Ontario and bring me to the border of Manitoba, Winnipeg. Oh, well, that next case is in Winnipeg. Look at that. All right, so that's where we'll start next episode. Chris, if you're watching, there's your thing. That's my episode for next week. All right, let's get to the comments so I can end this tea party. And you guys can continue your Monday. Thank you for sharing this time with me. So Jillian said earlier, I had a visual in June of a woman in a field with 2 orange balls in the sky. All right, there's validation. Somebody else has seen what was described. Are they the same things? Are they similar? Are they related? Are they cousins? I don't know yet. So if a report for these come in, we'll be able to compare and contrast that at the time. So being observed, okay, report, and an aerial activity report. When you make a report, there'll be a section to say there are more reports to come, and we'll wait until we receive all those reports and do them all together. There's a section for that. Jill, I did send you that video explaining how the system works. So I don't know if you've seen that yet, but if you have any questions, you can message me, and we'll go from there. Arnold. Oh, sorry. I got to finish the rest of what you said. Sorry. I had recreated it, though, through editing a couple months ago. Interesting. Well, it's good that you do a recreation, because that recreation helps you try to put pieces together, but you don't want to play with it so much that you're trying to remember or you're trying to guess. So the best practice is when you have the experience, write it down on a piece of paper, try and draw it, and then you can recreate. But I don't know how you've done it. I'm only speaking to what I know. All right. Arnold says, informative system for looking at these events. Thank you. That's referring to the ultra spectrum classification system. I appreciate that, Arnold. We'll try and remember this when one recounting one's couple of experience, current story, somewhat of a movie. Yeah, group them all together. It's good for MUFON because they want to sell a story. They want to write books. I mean, it's good for books. It's good for Hollywood. It's good for TV. That's what you want your experience to be. Fill your boots. But from an investigative point of view, we got to separate everything in the room, and we got to look at everything one by one, and then look at what we have left. And when I have multiple reports from experiencers, then I look at the experiencer, because I need to prove credibility of the experiencer. This experiencer gave me 10 reports. Proof. Perfect. 7 of them I identified. 3 of them I don't know. But do I not know how different are those 3 that I don't know in comparison to the 7 I was able to figure out? Are they likely the same, or am I just missing information? So there's a way to do that, and there's a book that I will produce at some point with these cases to explain all that. I just got set up all the other people with what they need to do for TESA first. Okay, I'm at time, so I got to rush this through. After I explained the visual to some friends, so Jill is continuing, 2 balls of light flew into my friend Laura's yard that night. Interesting. And your friend Laura saw it as well? You got multiple witnesses? Interesting. Long story. I figured it would be. Very interesting. Was this random, or is this doing a CE5 event? Patricia Page says, I've never had an experience. Not sure if that's good or not. So very interesting. Thank you. Experience can be anything. You may not know that it's psychogenic. You may not know that it's weird. You may not know that it's odd because you're not looking for it. There's signs all over the place. You can see numbers 111 or 222. That's a sign. That's an experience. Okay, so maybe you haven't had a grandiose experience like this, but there may be some signs. So with this particular experiencer, if we are able to spend enough time with the experiencer to get all of their cases categorized, then we can build a timeline. Because the experiencer who reported this, although this was their first one, there's more cases that they've had. And then as we get a timeline, we can then suggest that these different types of categories are together or are cause and effect. It starts with an aerial activity, then it's paranormal activity. As they get older, they become psychogenic. They have this gift, they're a mediumship, or do medium work. All that stuff can be built in their cases once all of the experiences have been reported and considered useful information. So it's huge. It gets bigger than this. Okay. This particular case, though, is one of the main, if not primary reasons why I created the ultraspectrum classification system and why I left MUFON, and because I determined MUFON to be null and void and absolutely not capable of handling this stuff. Okay. See another like there, Patricia Page. Thank you for the like. I got to get going. Yes, multiple 4 in total. So between all events. All right. So I expect 4 reports, please. Please and thank you. Lisa said, I made some people unhappy when I told them I won't be writing book 2 about my experience. Yeah, the people you probably made unhappy, Lisa, are the people that are profiting from your books. Okay? But, you know, I would like to read some of your books. I do like your books. But we can talk about that when the time's right. Get your cases in and we'll go from there. Not C5 related. Awesome. Still writing my experience in my journal. Awesome. I have no idea why you said that. May not be related to what I'm talking about. I don't want to know. All right. Okay, guys. Chris, now you're saying, hey, you're a little freaking late. All right. A little late. Watch the beginning of the video if you haven't already. I got some comments for you. Good work today in the office. And I hope you hired that guy because we need that guy. But anyways, guys, I got to go. Thank you for all tuning in on this episode of The Skeptical Sleuth. We are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are also broadcasting live on social media, and this show was brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Remember, and I mean this, remember, one lie is enough to question all truth, guys. One lie. And if the earth is in the shape that they claim it to be, that's the mother of all lies. But if you play with that for a little bit, play with the possibility and think, what if? Think about it. Everything fits. There's an answer for all these conspiracies. And once you go flat, you don't go back. All right? Keep your eyes in the sky. Thanks for watching. And as always, heed the world. And I'll see you next week. Peace.
If you want to really, really find out about Ryan, ask him about all his work and UFOs in Ontario.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada.
I have used his research extensively. He's much more than a one-dimensional character. He's an authority on UFOs and investigating them, Meg.
Wow!
Really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. For starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them.
He would come out with an annual report on not only the number of sightings, but how many were unexplained, unknown, or just, nothing could be said. What caused
If you
it.
want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.